Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 2, and today I'm going to be giving you part 2 of What If Naruto was an immortal that went to the world of the gods. Sit back, relax, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and comment down below that you want part 3 guys. And also, if you want your what if to be done by me, go ahead and click on anime symbol, another one of my channels in the description, and simply comment on the latest video over there. And also check out the other channels down there guys, all of them owned by me. And become a part of the Making family. So yeah, without further ado or wasting more time, what do you say we jump right into this brand new episode begin? Now guys. So, the last spot we left off. Two figures were just relaxing on top of a mountain top, watching the scenery down below them. One of them was the son of the older blonde. It was none other than Zetsu. Yes, he was a son of Naruto, who was sitting there relaxing. The time of shinobi had long passed. Countless of years had went by, and Naruto, he was able to traverse through all of them, and he was still here. Zetsu was talking about going towards one of the different continents though. However, those were mostly populated by the other gods, as they had their domain over there. Naruto told Zetsu the moment they sensed them, they will try to attack them. However, Naruto was not a warring god. He was a peaceful one. But he was not one to lie down and watch as his son or himself just be attacked or killed. And he just didn't want to start any war because he knew the casualties would be tremendous. However, Zetsu came up with the idea of a way for him and his father to go there without any problem, as Naruto was rather happy to hear what his son had to say. He was always there, being supportive and praising him. So with that, they set their plan into action. It did not take long for them to enter. With a bit of Fuinjutsu and Naruto's power, they were able to disguise themselves as just two wandering spirits. The gods would not sense them in the slightest, so yes, that was good for them. So with that, they spent the night just out in the open, in the forest, as the both of them were intertwined with nature, Naruto being the god of nature as well. Zetsu, well, he was a being of nature as well, created by Naruto. They went to a few ramen stores there, and they had to say, the ramen was horrendous. Zetsu was a fan of meat, yes, he eat meat. His father had put limitations on him though, so he would not eat any other creature or any human meat. However, even he had to say the ramen was just something that these Western people put together, and it was not good at all. So with that, they started to traverse the city, checking out new sights and enjoying everything going on around them. We then skip to a flashback of Zetsu and how he was first created, as the first thing that he woke up to was his father. And he believed that he had a purpose that he needed to do. However, his father told him that he just wanted to live. And since then, he has been by his side, and he greatly loved his father. So with that, the duo continued to traverse throughout the entire western continent until Zetsu saw that Naruto had noticed something when he suddenly blurred away. 3 kids were being attacked by magical wolves. 2 older ones and 1 younger one, as Naruto jumped right in the middle. He quickly dispatched the magical wolves as he took them out rather easily. The 2 older ones were untrusting at first. However, as the time passed, they started to trust him just a bit slightly, as they were heading towards a half-blood camp, because the three of them were demigods. And while it was risky to do this, Naruto was not just gonna leave them alone for them to fend for themselves. The kids knew that he was something powerful, while the two older ones, they knew that he was lying about just being someone that trained really hard. That was not the case entirely. He was a powerful being, but to what? They did not know. However, they were going to remain skeptical until they arrived at Camp Half-Blood. So with that, they made their way, unaware of the trials and travels up ahead. Such trials and travels for Naruto as well, because of his status. So yeah guys, that was basically as we left off. You guys can switch across to please check it out for yourself. Don't forget to go ahead and check out the other what ifs of the other channels. I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them. So yeah, without further ado or wasting more time, what do you say we jump right into this? Begin now guys. We begin this episode at the National Museum, Washington DC, the 30th of June 2000. Over the centuries, Zetsu has had many siblings. However, none of them were blood related. His father just did not have any kids in the traditional manner. Instead, he either created them, like what he did with Zetsu, or he took in kids that caught his interest and raised them. They grew up, they achieved their dreams and ambitions, and for some, they were captivated in legends. Amaterasu, the benevolent son. Maui, the brave adventurer. Kitsukawa, the radiant serpent. Anansi, the cunning spider. Miyamoto Musashi, he was the strongest samurai. These were but a few of his father's children and students. Unfortunately though, the human mind always twists their biology and their feats into something that were truly unrecognized from the original. Yes, there was always something that is twisted over the ages by the humans. But the point was, Naruto had a habit of taking in kids and making them a part of his family. So Zetsu was not surprised in the slightest that his father had taken interest in another one. I really just wish that she was less talkative, Zetsu thought to himself, as he glanced towards Annabeth, the subject of his thoughts. The girl was holding Naruto's hand as she glanced around at everything, firing 1,000 questions in a minute, one after the other. She was truly captivated by everything, pointing and moving and looking. The tiny demigoddess had made a passing comment when she had saw an advertisement of this museum when they first came into Washington. Upon hearing her wish, his father had proceeded to reserve a rather expensive suite in one of the best hotels in the city, much to the amazement of Luke and Talia. Where did he get the money for it? Well, you tend to gather a large amount of riches once immortality truly sets in. But in any case, it's been a full month since they met. Zetsu could still see that Talia and Luke, they had their doubts, but day by day it was being chipped away. And Zetsu was not surprised in the slightest. His father had that effect on people. Most of the time his kindness and gentle nature can reach almost anyone. Most of the time. Zetsu shrugged off the thoughts. There was no time for them right now. This was a family vacation with the extra company, but he would do his best and try to enjoy the vacation that they were currently on. Looking back towards the girl, he wasn't surprised to see that she had his father lift her up so she could take a closer look at one of the exhibits. And then her questions came back in a vengeance. Zetsu could understand how she was curious. He was once like her as well. But her non-stop questioning and talking, it was still aggravating. He wanted to tell her off, but every time he held himself back for two reasons. His father would be rather unhappy because he was humoring the kid. His father also glanced towards him every time he felt a spike in his negative emotions. So Zetsu decided to just keep his mouth shut and entertain himself with the other two, They weren't interested in the exhibits or anything. They had a subject on mind, something that they were talking about now. They were talking about Pokemon. Naruto had the idea to introduce them to pop culture with a few couple Game Boys that he had in his bag, some old games that he had carried for him and Zetsu to play, and also some mangas that he had unsealed discreetly. As expected for many in their age group, Talia and Luke took to the games like fish out of water. Since his father was finishing off most of the monsters that they came across, with the exception of Talia asking for him to leave some for them as well, they had more time to indulge themselves with the fictional and gaming world, which came down to their present, quiet argument. I'm telling you, Squirtle is the best starter. Luke's arms were crossed as he was looking over towards the demigoddess. And I'm telling you, Luke, only a fool would pick Squirtle over Charmander, Talia said. Squirtle breezed through the first two gyms. It gives you the best start. Yeah, up until you get to mid-game, and the fights start to take forever. Charmander might take a bit to get used to, but that is only for bad players who can't use him correctly. Her stormy eyes shining in frustration as they argue. Remind me again, who has the most badges? Luke said, with a smug look on his face. She frowned. You, she said. She turned her head away to pout. Charmander is a dragon. Dragons are way cooler than turtles, Talia said. And how exactly is that gonna help your gameplay? Squirtle, at least get the better evolution, Luke said, doubling down. She snapped her gaze towards him. Are you sure that we're playing the same game? She said. Bulbasaur, a voice spoke up as the both of them turned their gaze. I know what I said. Bulbasaur stomps all, Zetsu said, crossing his arms. The hell it does, the both of them spoke at the same time, before they snapped their gaze to each other, fire in their eyes. Stop copying me, they said. Stop it. Damn it. The both of them were saying the same thing over and over again. Zetsu did not seem to care. In fact, it seems like he was enjoying the chaos. His lips twitched into a rare smile, a genuine one, at the sibling-like moment. Now to fan the flames a bit more, they might get kicked out and finally do something fun. Oi! All of them froze. Zetsu did not dare turn as he knew the beast was behind him. The two arguing teens had similar reactions. Standing there was the older Uzumaki, with Annabeth beside him, oblivious. His voice was not loud, his eyes were closed, and his lip was curved up into a smile. Yet, the feeling that radiated off of him, it showed something different. Zetsu ran behind the two of them for cover, as Luke hold on to Talia. Are you three trying to get us kicked out? The annoyed Naruto spoke up. But, shh, he said, cutting Talia off. Come on guys, he said. I believe that we're in a museum. Let us at least have some common decency. Okay? His face was still set in a smile. Alright, now let's groove, he said. As all of them sweat dropped. Really now? Who says groove anymore? Talia said. Old people, Luke said, as Naruto gripped his chest at that. They're right on that one, Zetsu said. He gripped his chest even harder. Someone, save me from these mean kids, he said, as he was slowly backing away, lifting Annabeth up and using her as a shield to block off their negativity. She simply laughed. A month of traveling together has done wonders for them getting along and getting to know each other better. Meanwhile that was going on, Olympus, Athena's temple. Athena narrowed her eyes. Her grey pool, shining, with millions of thoughts running through her mind. Plans, ideas. Her hands were moving at superhuman speeds, taking down documents and notes, breezing through the mountain of documents as she was going through. It wasn't anything special, it was just standard behavior. In an effort to cope with the insane amount of speed that her mind worked at, she had developed a habit from over the last couple of thousand years. If anything, it didn't matter what small or large it was, caught her interest. She would go into every single detail to analyze and understand it. And at the moment, her latest target was something that she did not usually encounter. It was an unknown verbal. She had sensed him through her own daughter. It's a stranger and his son who appeared out of nowhere and saved Annabeth and her friends. While Athena was grateful for them performing that heroic act, and she would have left it be, might bless them a little bit for what they did to protect her little Annabeth and make her smile. However, over the month, she had usually checked in on her daughter, and over the month she saw them showing feats that perform abnormal amount of strength and power. Now that was very curious. At first she thought they were demigods, or legacy. However, the moment she felt their power, she realized that they were not. While she might not be a censor as her sister, telling the difference between a demigod and a human was really easy. However, here this was not the case. The energy felt more like a nature spirit, not a sadder, but something more stronger. But that was not enough though to raise too much alarms. And given the fact that the both of them were male, and they did not have the goat half, that made her more interested in the subject. After hearing their stories, a quick search on the Japanese census, it actually showed what they were revealing. Naruto N. Uzumaki and Zetsu N. Uzumaki. There was no mention of the boy having a mother or Mr. Uzumaki being married. The two Japanese citizens, they came to the US on a travel visa, while the father was an ex-member of the GSDF, but now he was a humble ramen cook. A waste of talent if you ask her. It was a son biography that made her raise a curious eyebrow. He was a high school graduate at the age of 15, a prodigy in both sports and academics. Occasionally, yes, there was the mental genius. However, it is rare that you find a child that possesses both academics and physical work. However, the information could be fraud, mismanipulation. But what was their purpose? Are they related to the Shinto? Were they servants, yokais, scouts? She did not know. And that bothered her greatly. She did not like the fact that she had so little information about the Japanese gods. The gods of the East were completely different from them. It was nothing to compare. The Japanese gods did not have to adapt like the Greeks, the Egyptians, or the Norse god, and creating their influence by spreading it through their offspring demigods to shape the world in their favor, the world of mortals. They never had to work to spread their stories, so people would not forget about them. The Shinto, Taoists, and Hindus has retained a large part of their influence over the few millennia. Especially the Hindus. They have become so much more powerful due to the number of followers that is still growing. The very thought of going to war with them was suicide if Athena thought about it. The only way they would have a chance is if Zeus, Odin, and Ra put aside their differences to join forces to fight them. However, one-on-one, they would lose. Besides, those three would never put aside their differences or their egos, so that would not change in the slightest. As for the Taoists and the Shinto, many of their followers has decreased. However, their shrines were still being used, and their practices were still being maintained throughout the ages. Unfortunately though, both of them has a rivalry that has been going back to thousands of years. This conflict had started long before the Shinto chief goddess Amaterasu had even earned her place at the top of the pantheons. It was a mysteriously heavenly war that has been on for ages. No one knew who started it. To this day, it had yet to be uncovered on what exactly happened. The two sides that fought kept it on the wraps. All that she knew was, was the few piece of information that was left behind by text and writing in scribes and all forgotten tablets. The lack of information made her quite upset that she did not know anything about it. She had many questions that she wanted to be answered, but because of the laws that were set a very long time ago, and the fact that she did not want to risk a war between the different gods, she would not get involved. Especially to risk a war with the Shintos. That would be bad. They might lack in number, but each of them possess a great individual strength that would make up for their numbers. Be it through their own big tree, Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, or Susanoo, or through these cryptic pieces that she kept on reading pieces of, these tablets and information that she found. It is rumored that there was a man that was able to stand toe to toe with the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor was one of the strongest beings, even amongst them gods, and yet it is said that a man had stood toe to toe with him. It sounded truly ridiculous. That should be impossible. However, she had a nagging feeling that there was more to the story. In any case, if that man was actually real, it meant the Olympic gods had to face a pantheonic threat. And that scenario was something that none of them would be ready for. However, it all hinged on one question. She always found this name. It was in almost all of the cryptic information that she found. The Gallant Sage of the East. That was his title. She heard her clock as she glanced up. A question for another time, she thought to herself, as she returned back to her duties. She made a mental note in her mind to talk to her sister. Hopefully Artemis can feel the two strangers out and give her a more accurate threat level that they pose. She could not act irrationally. After all, she was Goddess Athena, goddess of wisdom, warfare, and battle strategy. She would not fail. Time skip to the past. Father, what is that? Zetsu, now a few years old, he was sitting on his father's shoulders. That, my dear boy, is a baby. Yes, Naruto was correct as he was holding a baby in his arms. A rather odd one. Do all humans grow like that? Zetsu asks. No, Zetsu-chan. They do not, said Naruto. She is also very hot to the touch, he noted, feeling a surprising amount of heat to the touch. The baby was quite the cute one, a small pudgy face, with a tub of black hair. Her eyes were wide open as she was observing Naruto, with a curious gaze. Her eyes were beautiful, shining like an emerald. Zetsu was curious himself because this was the first human baby that he has ever seen so far. Zetsu was curious, what is she then, he asked. And Naruto for once were stumped. He had found the baby on top of the Sunlight Mountain, named by the locals for the sunlight that bathed the mountain. Each morning, the little one had been crying her lungs out before Naruto came across her. It was like she sensed his warm aura as she had immediately quieted down. Naruto knew what she was. He had met beings like her before. Her energy was similar to the Shinigami. This was a Shinto goddess. Now that raised the issue. He still wanted to enjoy the peace and watch Zetsu grow up and traverse the region with him. He did not want to get involved into some petty politics. The baby whimpered as if she was sensing Naruto's hesitance on the matter. And all questions and thoughts were thrown out of the way. He would just have to adjust everything to make sure the extra passenger could fit in. He raised her up towards Zetsu level as the baby reached out as if she was going to grab the short Immortal. As Naruto finally gave his answer to Zetsu. She's your new sister, Zetsu-chan. Meet Amaterasu-chan, he said, with a smile on his face. Everything about her reminded him of his late best friend technique. Flames that were as black as her hair, one that could provide warmth or burn everything to nothingness. This little one had a lot of potential, and he could feel it. She started to babble excitedly as she was reaching towards Naruto's face. Naruto smiled as she started to pat his whisker cheeks. His family was growing. Time skip. Back to the original time. Merlin. 23rd of July, 2000. Artemis overlooked her huntress. As young ladies, clad in the hunter's uniform, were setting up camp for the night. They were divided in groups of 3 to prepare their tents, to set up the fire, and skim their bounty for the night. The goddess of the hunt smiled warmly at the sight of her girls. They've been working hard lately, she thought, thinking on how to reward them for their perseverance. Maybe I could ask Aunt Hestia for a batch of her cookies. She almost salivated at the thought. My lady, a voice interrupted her thoughts as she turned to see her sister in arms and her best friend, Zoe Nightshade. As she had her head bow. What is it, Zoe? She asks. I never meant to question thy judgment, yet I thought this trip would be. Be hopeful, she said. Artemis cocked her eyebrow at that. She did not feel offended by Zoe's question. Well, it's both a favor for my sister and an opportunity to test these mortals. They have 2 young maiden in their group, the last I heard, she answered. Zoe blinked up in surprise, before her cold black eyes narrowed in anger. Are they hurting them, she asked. Her tone was one of anger as she spoke. From what I've seen from my chariot, it doesn't look like it. If anything, it's the complete opposite. How so? Zoe asked. As a goddess, explained to her how she watched over the group as they journeyed through the East Coast. She's seen how the only adult in the group had guided them and helped them make up their camp as they journeyed in the night. She also felt him and his son energy. Athena was correct. The blonde man was truly a strange one. It's like looking at a satyr without goat legs, the goddess explained. He just has that feeling to him. And are thy positive that he's not dangerous? Zoe asks. That is what I intend to find out tonight, the goddess replied. The group did not know where Camp Half-Blood was, but they knew that it was somewhere on the East Coast, and that is where they were traveling. Thus, she had predicted their route and made sure to meet them at their leisure, both to see if she could get 2 huntresses out of it and scrutinize the males, and if necessary, either kill them or turn them into jackalopes. She wondered what she would choose. Meanwhile, Naruto led the group into the park. Over the last month, he's been able to sense more than one pair of eyes watching them, following their movements. However, the followers did not make an aggression move, so he simply held his head forward. Zetsu kept on giving him that look to say, I told you so. Damn, why did his son have to be so petty? Yes, he took in the group of demigods, and he might have unwillingly attract the attention of the Greek gods, which would make everything a lot more difficult. But you know what? Yeah, he had nothing to say. Zetsu had his right to be mad, but that didn't mean he had to hate on the kids for it. They were victims here. His boy was not as sympathetic as he was. Zetsu just did not care about a lot of things, living or not, if they were not family. Of course he could warm up the people, but that usually takes years. The 3 demigods walked behind him as he continued to lead them towards the destination. He had to go in the same path because if he turned off it now, their spectators would know that they were able to sense them, something that he didn't want. He unknowingly channeled his inner Shikamaru as he released a breath. This is so troublesome. Being the best father ever was hard work. That is when they heard the noise in the bushes. All of them came to a stop. Talia and Luke had taken up their defensive posture around Annabeth. The little blonde tried to make herself look bigger as she puffed her chest out and held up a bronze dagger that was given to her by Luke. Aw, that's so adorable, Naruto thought. He was about to take her picture until about half a dozen girls came out. They had bow and arrows and weapons raised at them. A girl with chestnut hair and hypnotizing silver eyes was at the head of the group. To anyone else, it would look like a teen of adolescence, being led by someone their own age or might be a bit younger. Halt, mortals. Despite her stature, her voice was commanding and cold. Naruto was about to greet them, but before he could get a word in edgewise, someone beat him to the punch. Uh, who are you? Talia quickly said, as she pointed her spear towards the brunette. Every other archer pointed their weapons towards her. However, the one next to the commanding voice one was the one that spoke up. How dare thy point their weapon at Lady Artemis? Zoe, calm down. It's a common mistake, the goddess said, calming Zoe. As the girls lowered their weapons, Luke understood immediately as he elbowed Thalia. As she lowered her weapon, Naruto was a little confused about this situation. While he had felt the goddess' power, he knew that she was a goddess. Her willingness to turn into a younger form of herself to cause misconfusion was a bit confusing to him. And why was that other girl talking like she was in medieval England? All in all of them were pretty strange. But then again, strange made things a bit more fun, and it was far from bad. He raised his hand in a gesture of non-violence. Hello there, young ladies. However, he was coldly interrupted by the goddess. Silent boy, do not think that you can address me so casually. She rebuked him, causing Naruto to blink at her behavior, especially the way she talked to him. What's with these trashy mannerisms, he thought, as he narrowed his gaze. For a second there, he was going to respond with humor, something witty, something like, what's up with the sassy lost child? He would then point at her and looked at everyone else. She would then get angry and perhaps shoot him with her arrows. And then he would probably kick her across the country. That would just cause a whole lot of problem though. Besides, he would not kick a child unless you want to send everything into chaos and start a fight with her family. He would just have to accept her personality for now. So reluctantly, he swallowed his pride, even though he wanted to grab her by the ear and teach her some common courtesy. Moments later, Artemis sat in her tent in her adult form. The girls had been taken by her huntresses, despite their protests, to be checked for any injuries. The males had been isolated in a clearing outside the camp, with clear instructions not to approach the tents, or else the girls would be brought in front of her in a few minutes to ask them the questions, and also ask if they would like to join the huntresses. While Artemis wouldn't say it, she wished the man would have taken offense or even tried something. It would have given her a quick excuse to turn him into a jackalope. But it's like he knew what was at stake, because neither him or his son glared at their direction. Yes, she taunted them, and she might have acted in a way that would have earned her a lecture from her aunt. But she had justification for it though. The oldest male was too strange, too odd for her taste. While he did look surprised that she was there, he was not afraid, not even in the slightest. She felt his power and it was not impressive. He had a bit more power than the average nature spirit, but nothing to be surprised about. Could he somehow be suppressing his aura? She shook her head, marking that out. No, nothing could hide from her senses. While she did not possess her brother foresight, she was the finest when it comes to the sensing in the Olympians. So much so that she often, what was her brother word for it again? Yes, nerf herself so that she could enjoy life a bit more challenging. Her senses allow her to assess the threat level of any creature, and yet there was nothing threatening about the blonde, even though Athena warning said the opposite. So she was not sure. She had two ideas though, given his behavior. Either he was an unpredictable wild card, or he was a complete idiot, as she concentrated on driving her own chariot. Something her brother did as well, as she was able to see what they were doing. They were sitting around a campfire, having their own little conversation. She did notice father and son tense slightly. Can they sense me? She wondered. She saw the man start to make funny faces and steer the conversation in a way that relaxed the other demigod, so he might not be an idiot. However, He was definitely hiding something. Just as she finished her thought, the tent opened up as Zoe led the two girls inside. The older one seemed upset, but the younger one was just looking around in awe. Artemis smiled at that. While the hunt and the moon was her domain, one must not forget that she was the goddess of children and maidens. So occupied she was, she never noticed a small, worm-like creature slipping from Talia's shoes and camouflaging itself with the carpet. Time skip. The two demigoddesses spend the night with the hunt, while the males camp outside. The two girls return in the morning. Talia seemed more angry. Annabeth, on the other hand, she ran to Naruto rather quickly to tell him about her exciting night and all the details of what happened. As for Zetsu, he was pissed off. He knew that taking in the three brats was a bad idea, but his father insisted. So unbeknownst to his father, Zetsu had released a small part of himself, attaching it to Talia's shoes, and have it sneak into the tent to gather information. Much like his father, Zetsu could clone himself. However, he could also asexually reproduce, at least make more bodies that had their own mind and independent thoughts, but they were still linked to him. And they could also suppress themselves just like him as well, something that not even his own father could replicate, where they could completely erase their own presence. And they were very much loyal to him. He knew that he was taking a risk with this, but after all the idiocy that his father pulled, they have to have some safeguards. If the Olympians want to play, then Zetsu was going to pull a reverse play card on them. When the Uzumakis play, they play to win, and the Olympians will know that. Time skip. In the past, we find Naruto staring at the old man with a glare. There were a few objects in front of him. How much can I choose, he said. For who you're fighting? As much as you can handle, brat, the old man said with a grin. You realize I'm older than you, Kudasuke. Naruto huffed at the Shinto god of smithing as he glanced down towards the objects in front of him, accessories as he started to place them on. Meanwhile, Mara, the evil one, sat upon his throne of skulls, smirking to himself. Truly, his plan worked without a hitch. While the Trumudian and the other gods were busy with the monstrosities and curses that he unleashed, he will move forward with his troops towards the eastern coast. However, he had to deal with one last annoyance before he declared his victory. Just as he finished that thought though, its doors were blasted open with a kick. Mara rolled his shoulders as he prepared himself for one of the best fights of his entire life. He smirked to himself. So you finally arrive? The being paused in surprise. What the hell are you wearing? An embarrassed Naruto speed walked into the room, somehow dressed less fashionable than a circus clown, with divine artifacts and cloths wrapped around him to boost his power. It's my ass-kicking outfit, said Naruto as he rushed forward, skipping back to the normal time, south of New Jersey. It was the 2nd of September, 2000. Luke was honestly having a great time. That was rather surprising, given the fact that Talia said that he had more edge than her spear. But how could he not? After that fateful night in the woods a month ago, pretty much all of his doubts had vanished away. When he was told to stand aside as a goddess, take away his companions, he felt a great amount of despair. He did not have a good childhood. His mother had a rather bad deteriorating health, not to mention his deadbeat father who is a so-called omnipotent god, but yet he could not make time for his kid or the woman that he loved. Or that is what his mother claimed whenever the subject is brought up. Point was, at that night, he was at his lowest, but something that Mr. Naruto, or Mr. Whiskers, something that him and Talia had started to call him, it had gave him hope. Hey, what's that frown for, buddy? You don't think that low of our friends, no do you? The man had continued to say that the girls would return, their battles and good time. It had forged an unbreakable bond between them. Yes, all 5 of them. Maybe it was a few days that they spent on the boat before coming to New Jersey. But he felt all of his worry vanish away, and he started to enjoy his time amongst the group. Mr. Whisker's bad jokes, Zetsu overreaction to them, Talia's snicker and attitude, and Annabeth, childish cheer. And yeah, maybe his edgy self as well. Everyone had their quirks, but they had each other back. Mr. Whiskers was like the fun uncle. He would go so far as to call him the group dad. Zetsu was the stick in the mud older brother. Annabeth was the adorable little sister. And Talia, well, there was some conflicting feelings there. Oh, don't get him wrong, he certainly loved her. But he wasn't so sure that this love was platonic anymore. Maybe it was just puberty, messing with his feelings. Or maybe he just found a girl with freckles to be rather cute. He will think about that later. His stomach growled. Damn. How long until they reach a... Luke bumped into something, which made him stop. Naruto was also in a good mood. Ever since that little bratty goddess had tried to separate them, as if little Talia and Annabeth would just jump ship like that. He was still irritated to the way that she treated him, so much so that he had half a mind to march up to Zeus and some lady known as Leto to give them a stern talking to. Her attitude seemed rather spoiled. Most of the blame always fall on the parents' shoulders for not parenting their child properly. If anything, what he read about her story, maybe it wasn't her fault that she grew up like that. Being the product of a marital affair, having her stepmother out to get her and her mother, apparently. And the last one, having her own father tell her about her conception in detail. Now that surprised Naruto. If he ever saw Zeus, he was just going to give him an ass beating out of pure principle. Then again, that was not really an option because it would just ruin his entire thing of being here. And he wasn't even sure if the whole story was true. But if it turned out to be real, and him and Zeus found themselves in a rather empty and open place, oh, he would be throwing out so many hands, he might as well call himself Hoshirama. Naruto's stomach growled. He was hungry again. He knew that he should have eaten that extra bowl. He heard Luke yelled out. As Naruto got up, something also shattered. As he saw Luke on the ground while a statue was in pieces. Luke, are you alright, my boy? Said Naruto as he helped him up. Talia was not one to miss her opportunities. What's wrong, Mr. Edge? Got your head in the clouds, she asked him. Oh, you would know all about that now, wouldn't you? Said Luke as he turned his head to see what he bumped into. Naruto did the same as well. Oh shit. The statue was ridiculously detailed, to the point it almost looked real. This was going to be really expensive, yes it was. Yes, he had money, but that didn't mean that he liked to just throw it around. And given the details of that statue, it was going to be super expensive. Naruto ignored the two demigods bickering, while Annabeth stood by Zetsu, looking worried. He knelt down to see if he could patch it up with some earth release. He would explain to the kids later. However, the moment his finger made contact with the stone, he was rather shocked. His eyes shifted to a golden color. This is not a statue. It's a corpse. A petrified human corpse. Someone that was exposed to a raw amount of natural energy and turned to stone. As a result, he wouldn't call it senjutsu, but something similar. A sudden spike of negative emotions alerted him to someone's presence. Oh my, hello there. A feminine voice called out, alerting the group that was standing there. The woman looked Middle Eastern. She was clad in a dark robe, a headscarf, and a pair of glasses. There wasn't much else to use to describe her. Even with her shades on, he could tell that she was observing them. He noticed her emotions darken considerably when her gaze swept over Annabeth. That's a lot of anger, he thought to himself. A quick scan alerted him. A monster. More specifically, the one that was responsible for the humanoid statue. When I heard the sound of one of my pieces breaking, I thought another bear had gotten on the property. Thank goodness it wasn't the case, she said, ignorant of Naruto's thoughts. The kids were giving her untrusting looks as well. Yes, they had a hard time trusting people. Just as Thalia and Luke opened their mouth to say something, Zetsu interjected as he spoke. We're sorry for the trouble, ma'am. We'll pay you back for the statue, he said, gazing towards the father at the corner of his gaze. Good, Naruto thought. Zetsu had already caught on to the woman nature. Oh, that old thing? She waved her hand dismissively, something that pissed Naruto off. However, his face did not show it. I'd much rather that you join me for some supper. I rarely get visitors around these parts, she said, gesturing to her home, a large red cabin. Luke and Talia stomach growl. The both of them instantly blushed in embarrassment. Annabeth walked up to Naruto. She had a worried look on her face as she tugged on his shirt. Oh, Annie, he said as he patted her on the head. You guys go ahead. I'll go after you in a bit, he said, as he gazed towards Zetsu. Zetsu instantly understood the message. Engage if you must, but try and wait for me. The group filtered into the house, with the demigods thanking the woman for her generosity, and Zetsu standing between them and the monster. Naruto then raised his hand before he slapped it on the ground. The ground texture changed and sucked the pieces under earth, before a stone edge came back out. It was a grave. Naruto bowed his head. It's not much, but it was the least I could do, he said. Due to his proficiency in the sage art, and his previous connection to his sworn siblings, Naruto had become an empathy, as much as one could get. That ability alone had shifted his perspective on a lot of things, including the world around him. He had become someone who cherished life, and he did not tolerate anyone disrespecting it. He rarely killed for anything more than nourishments, and if he did, he made sure his enemies receive a proper burial. No sane person wanted their remains to be left like a trophy or paraded around to the elements. Despite his power, he believed that every sentient creature had every reason to live the way they wish and die the way they wish. But the world was never that kind. But if he could preserve someone's dignity when tarnished, he would do so without a second thought. That was the kind of man that he was. He looked at the rest of the statues. Don't worry guys, he said. I'll be back for you. Just gotta scold somebody first. He stepped towards the building with a determined expression written over his face as he entered the Emporium, to see the rest of his companions seated in the center table. As he glanced around to the rest of the displays, monster or not, she had some good taste in art though. No, if only she did not cause mass murder and refrain from disrespecting the dead. Mr. Naruto, the lady is really great, Annabeth, the always excitable child, said as she bounced in her seat. He wouldn't falter. Hamburgers seemed to be something that kids just universally liked. Even Thalia, who was all about being cool, seemed rather happy. Burgers were her favorite after all. As for Luke and Zetsu, they seemed to be in a conversation of their own, as Zetsu was rebuking everything that Luke said, which angered the younger demigod. Well then, said Naruto, I'll just have to go and thank her, he said, as he made his way toward the side room, where he could hear the sounds of utensils. She was in the middle of preparing a burger patty when she heard the door open and close behind her. Oh, sir. How may I help you, she said, with a fake smile. Oh, no need for this, sir. Just call me Naruto. I just came here to thank you for your generosity and offer my help, he said, rubbing his hands together as he approached her. Oh, there's no need for that, Mr. Naruto, she said. You're a guest here, as she waved him off. Oh, but I'm mustard, insists. Can't let a lady cook by her lonesome. My mind wouldn't be at cheese, Naruto said, is terms of joking. A small snort escaped her before she covered her mouth daintily with a hand. Oh, you got jokes, do you? Despite her hand, he could tell that she was smiling genuinely. You butterfly believe it, he said, with a wink and a smile. This time a giggle escaped her, as she motioned for him to come over to help her. A few minutes passed as Naruto chopped up vegetables, as his host prepared the patties. As Naruto spoke, So, you prepare kids' meal often, he said. Oh no, she said. People rarely come in these parts, let alone children. She seemed sad. Really? With all those statues outside, you must truly be making a killing, said Naruto. This time she gazed at him, suspiciously. Medusa was very much alert. The emphasis on the last word did not escape her one bit. She backed up a distance and looked at the man, only to feel a chill run down her spine. As he smiled, it sent shivers down her spine. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return outside, She cursed herself in her mind as she just stuttered in front of a mortal. She was Medusa, damn it, as her hand raised towards her glasses. His face did not twitch, but she could see it. He knew. He saw right through her act, her fake smile, her traps. However, he was not the first to do so, and he wouldn't be the last. But it did not matter though. All she had to do was petrify him, and do the same for the others. Especially little one. She could smell Athena's scent coming off her. You know, said Naruto as he started to wash his hands. I can forgive a lot of things in life, but targeting kids. He started to rub his hands. Is a big no-no. Medusa didn't know why. Why the hell was she afraid? One look and it would be over. She slowly moved forward like a predator and her prey. Oh, whatever do you mean? She asked in an innocent tone. I'm just as simple. She was about to continue until... Cut the bullshit, said Naruto. His tone changing completely as he stepped forward, looking straight into her lenses. She would not falter though, and who might he grabbed her by the throat and lift her off the ground. I'm just a guy looking after these kids, he said. Looking at her struggling form, she started to choke. She reached up and tore the scarf off and her glasses as well, exposing her hair and face to the world. Die! She looked directly into his eyes. Her curse activated itself. However, he looked directly at her, and absolutely nothing happened. She was baffled. What? She said, not understanding. Impossible. He's not a real mortal, she thought to herself. He was looking directly at her, unafraid, unpetrified. That's a rather nifty trick you got there. Were you gonna use it on the kids? Naruto asked. She did not answer, though, as her face. It was turning blue. He dropped her. She backed away as she slammed into one of the closets. What are you? She said, looking at him with fear. Suddenly, his demeanor changed. I already told you, didn't I? He said. I'm looking after those kids. Can't let you turn them into an art exhibit, you know? That's just not cool. She glared at him with all the hate she could muster. He was toying with her. She was used to her opponent seeing her as a threat. Even the more powerful demigods get a bit of fear when she pulled out her claws. And yet, he was unaffected. Not even as slight. At all. However, she refused. Yes, she refused. She will still bring him to his knees and make him experience a fear. However, she had no idea just who exactly she was toying with. Who exactly she was looking at as she slowly got up to her feet. Seeing the unafraid expression on his face just pissed her off even more. To make him pay. But guys, be in so right here. If you want to see next person do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification stay posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in social media platform. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.